We will get started. I call this meeting of the Riders Advisory Council on April 12th, 2023 to order. John, may you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Brian Meyer, Chair.
Present.
Mahalia Fernando, Vice Chair. I see you.
Present.
Cole Stout. Not here. Jose Del Cid. I don't think has joined us yet. Mike Leibowitz. Here. Pat Sheehan is here. Emma Wormser.
Here.
All right. You have a quorum if you want to go ahead and get started.
Sounds good. A motion that we approve the agenda as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Sounds good. The agenda is adopted. We will open it up to public comment. Are there any members currently in the chat or in the meeting that would like to present a comment? If so, feel free to raise your hand to be called upon. If not, John, okay, we got Phil. Phil.
Short comment, good luck. It's a long agenda. Get on with it.
Very nice. John, are there any public comments provided to us beforehand?
No, there was just one that asked more information about the council, so I will follow up with that person.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much.
Not a comment per se.
Perfect. We will move to our next agenda item, which is an update on the Better Bus Network, which, as you all have probably heard, released a bunch of information just over the course of several days, very excitingly. And we're here to get an update about the program and the redesign of our Metro bus system. So Melissa, thank you so much for coming and spending time this evening talking to us, and I will hand the floor over to you.
Great, and I'm joined by my colleague Finn from the consultant team who's going to do a bulk of the presentation, but thank you so much for having us. Excited to share a little bit more of an update. You can go to the next slide. All right, so today we're going to have a brief project update. It's been a little bit since we last spoke with you, so I want to give you an update on where we are. We're going to spend the bulk of today talking about our engagement plan for this phase and how we're going to be getting out and getting comments on the network. And then we'll spend some time on next steps. One of those next steps is coming back to you next month with more detailed information on the actual network itself. And then we'll get into some discussion, answer any questions. Next slide. So we're about halfway through the project. We kicked off the project, as you may remember, in the middle of last year, and we came out to you during, I believe, our public and stakeholder engagement during the last round. So since we last spoke with you and had kind of our Meet the Rack event, the team has been working really hard to develop the draft network that we're going to be taking out to the public starting on Monday. So it's being released very soon. Some of what was released are materials from the board presentation that are going to be shared on Friday. So that's kind of a sneak preview into some of the changes that are in that network. So we're going to start our next phase of public engagement on Monday. That's when all the materials will be released, and it'll run through June 5th. Ben is going to spend a lot of time talking more about that with you all in just a second. We're then going to take all of the input that we hear from you and from other stakeholders and the public to refine the networks, and then come back out to the public and to stakeholders again one more time to get additional input on the revised network. And we're working towards having finalized networks by the end of the year. Next slide. All right, so as I mentioned, we'll be coming back to you next month for next month's meeting to get into a lot more of the details about the Visionary Network itself. But at a very high level, the Visionary Network will deliver a number of things. The first one is regional connectivity. The network was really focused on connecting and matching where people want to travel and the times that people want to travel. We know that's changed a lot since MetroBus was first developed, and we've made changes at the margins, but this is really a time to look comprehensively at how we can better meet that travel demand. It will also provide fast, frequent, and reliable service. It's focused on providing more direct connections to where people want to go, more high frequency routes, and service that takes advantage of bus priority infrastructure that our jurisdictional partners have invested in. And finally, it's going to provide service that addresses inequities and really increases access to opportunities for disenfranchised communities. That was a big focus of the planning effort as well. Next slide. All right, and just a really brief preview. I've mentioned a couple of times that we'll be coming back to you in May, because I know it's going to be really exciting to hear more about the actual network. And today is focused a lot more on how we're going to be engaging people and events that we'd love for you all to come to. But the next presentation will get into information about the Visionary Network, like how the network was developed, how it was built, ways that the network increases access to bus service at various times of day and various days of the week, ways that the network provides access to high frequency service to more people at more times of day, how much time our customers will save using the new network, how residents in our equity focused communities will benefit from the new network, how the service will take advantage of dedicated lanes to be more reliable, and more, as it says on the slide. So we're excited to come back to you to share more about that as well. And then I think I'm going to turn it over to Finn to really take us into the details of what the next, goodness, I don't know exactly how many days. Is it 50 days exactly?
I don't know, but that's a nice round number that we've been using. So
Yeah.
it's around 50. Yeah, thanks so much, Melissa. Hi, everybody. Finn Vigeland here with the Better Bus team, and I'm going to dive right into what we'll be doing in engagement, just starting with our goals, so you know what the focus is of this round of public engagement. So first off, we want to make sure that we are sharing a visionary network in order to actually gather feedback from the public, especially most importantly from our customers. We want to make sure we are increasing their amount of awareness of this specific project. We want to make sure that the information we give them is clear. We are specifically explaining why we are engaging with them and what we've already heard in phase one. And ultimately, we want to build a bench of advocates for this project and champions for this project. So that's where all of you are able to come in. We want to show you why this is so important, and then make sure you go out and tell all of your networks as well. So I'm going to focus on all the places where you can start to engage with us, and then begin to spread the gospel of this project. So we have a very ambitious plan, and that is to host 50 events in 50 days to celebrate 50 years of MetroBus. We know that so many people are interested in this project across the region, and we can't just engage with them all in one way. So we have a wide variety of ways to reach the wide variety of customers at a wide variety of events. I'm going to speak to them just at a very high level now, and then go into more detail on the upcoming slides. But we will be meeting with our customers in person, whether that's actually on buses themselves, whether it's at pop-up events and workshops. We'll host a series of webinars. We'll host a Twitter space to speak to people on social media. We want to engage with people through groups that are already well engaged in the communities that we serve. We want to reach out to our youth audiences. We've done some great focus groups already with middle and high school students. We want to make these engagement opportunities exciting, and so in addition to more standard forms of note-taking, we'll be capturing feedback through visual note-taking. And of course, if you're not actually able to join us at any of these in-person opportunities, there will be plenty of ways to engage with us on our website, which is going to relaunch on Monday, or just to call us up over the phone and share your thoughts with us. So the first big umbrella of engagement opportunities falls under this title of Better Bus Experience Live. So the first subcategory within that are the community workshops that we plan to hold, and there will be 5 of them, and I'll give you the locations and dates and times of those in just a moment. But these will all be hosted in areas that will see changes to service, with a real focus on hosting those in Metro's equity focused communities, or EFCs as we call them. These workshops are going to have a lot of different interactive stations, but we also really want them to have a party atmosphere. So there will be games and prizes. There'll be a kids station with like a babysitter, so you can have your kids occupied there while you go around and engage with our events. We are very excited for those, and our launch party is a week from Friday. So that's Friday, April 21st from 3 to 7 p.m. at the Arc in Southeast DC. I believe the next slide has a little bit more information about the other 4 workshops that we're hosting. But this first of the 5 workshops is our launch party, so it's really going to be the biggest event. We would love to see all of you there, and as many people as you want to bring. We'll be hosting around 15 pop-ups. We did these in phase 1 as well. This is a way to take that fun party-like atmosphere of the workshop, but onto the road to actually meet our customers where they are. It's a slightly scaled down version of the workshop, but still with games and prizes and of course a lot of information about this network and a lot of opportunities for you to provide your feedback as well. So those are hosted all throughout our region, in large part at metro stations, but also at grocery stores and farmers markets and other places where we know we are likely to meet a lot of our customers already. Something that is new in phase 2 of engagement that we did not do in phase 1 will be hosting a series of ride-alongs on 26 different bus routes. And so these are really scalable interactions where we can speak to our customers on the bus itself, and the information that our ambassadors will have on those ride-alongs will speak really specifically to the proposed routes in the draft new network that correspond most to the alignment of the route that they are on at that moment. So it's really sort of hyper-focused. If you are on the A6 bus, these are the proposed new routes in that system, in the new network that would be most of interest to you. What do you think about them? We're going to host 3 webinars, one focused on each jurisdiction. That will be for those who can't meet us at our events. And there's the potential for additional webinars that we're still working on. And as I mentioned, this says Ask Me Anything, but I should say that it's actually going to be a Twitter space, and that's where we'll be able to speak to people just on social media as well. So as you can see, it's sort of a wide range of types of engagement opportunities, whether it's these big workshops down to just something on Twitter. And you can see that the in-person events are spread out throughout our region. 70% of them are in those equity focus communities, and 85% of them are within a half mile of EFCs. So we are really trying to target the communities that are often perhaps the most overlooked in the planning process. You can see also the distribution of where these workshops are, and the details of the workshops are located on this slide. So as I mentioned, the launch party is on April 21st. That's next Friday from 3 to 7 p.m. We have 4 more workshops. One will be at the West Hyattsville Library, Saturday, May 6th from 1:30 to 4:30. Arlington Central Library was the 3rd one on Wednesday, May 10th from 3 to 7 p.m. The 4th will be at the Turkey Thicket Rec Center on Saturday, May 20th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then the final one at the Creative Suitland Art Center on Sunday, May 21st from noon to 3 p.m. And I've passed along a full list of events to John. John, one of those events just changed 5 minutes before this meeting began, so I'm going to send you an updated list shortly. But those will also all be on that new version of our website that launches on Monday, which will always have the most up-to-date version. Obviously, some of these things are bound to change in small ways. So those are all of our big live events. but we want you to also experience the Visionary Network online, and our website, again, that relaunches on Monday. We'll have a whole suite of tools for you to be able to engage on your own time with the proposal. And so one of those tools, and that is on our new website, is a tool where you can envision your new trip. You're able to enter a start point and an end point of a trip that maybe you commonly take, and you can see how you might take that trip in the existing version of the bus network, but also the way that you might take it in the Visionary network. And you'll also be able to sort of see all the different places that are accessible within X number of minutes from your start point. So that's a great way to just compare the differences in how you might go from A to B between the existing and the Visionary networks. We'll have a tool where you can really zoom in on each individual route and leave a comment. This tool will allow you, one, just look at the entire map, but we're really encouraging people to select a route that they currently take and then see all of the proposed new routes that share at least some part of the alignment with the route that they currently take, so they can see the new way that they might take that route. And you'll be able, again, to leave some comments on that. We'll also have a library of maps that have there will be one route profile for each individual route. You can see the points of interest that would be served along that proposed new route, and a few other pieces of information as well in map form. So just to give you a sneak peek at what some of those tools look like, we'll have a static map, very similar to sort of the region-wide bus map that you see now. And that will have an overview of the draft network. This is an example of the route profile. So this would show the start and end points of the route, the current bus routes across Metrobus, the bus, and Q that are somewhat similar to this route, either in whole or in part. It'll have the POIs, the points of interest that appear along the alignment of that route. It'll tell you how often the bus will arrive and the span of the route, sort of all the relevant information about that. This, I apologize, but this image is a little low res, but this is an example of that comment on your route tool where you can select your current route and then see the analogous routes in the proposed new network. And I should note that this tool, as with all of the tools other than the static map, are compatible with screen readers. And in the case of this tool, it is capable of reading points of interest and other map labels. And then this is an image of the example trip planner. So this is where you'll be able to compare again the common trips that you might make and see what they would look like in the existing network and what they'll look like in the Visionary network. We really want to make sure we hear from everyone across our region, and so to that end, we will be giving information in the 9 sort of standard Metro languages. We have really aimed to prioritize the sites of our engagement events to be those areas that are accessible to people of color, to low-income people, and to people with disabilities. You'll be advertising in local papers and on radio stations, offering print and phone-based options to give us your input in addition to this whole suite of digital tools. We will be covering our system with flyers and posters and yard signs and ads on digital screens. We've also made sure to test our message in focus groups already, and to make sure that they are intuitive to folks across our diverse region, depending on their various backgrounds and also their comfort with digital tools. So that's testing that has already been completed before we go out to the public. A lot of different media that we'll be using to get the word out, as I've already alluded to. We have, under the umbrella of print ads, we will have some signs at major bus transfer centers, and we'll be handing out take ones, just sort of a brief piece of information that will direct you to our website. We will be hanging little flyers on doors in major civic centers, or churches and mosques and temples and synagogues and grocery stores, sort of all around our workshops, and in other areas where we really want to target participation. Our ads will be in multiple languages, not just in English. And on the digital end of things, we continue to send out information in our monthly e-newsletter, the Better Bus Dispatch, which currently has around 3,000 subscribers. We have a paid and geo-targeted social media campaign. We'll be using a lot of other ads, including in apps. So if you use something like Transit app, we will have some ads in that app. And then, of course, signage, on a screen, for instance, when you enter a metro station, and videos there as well. I want to highlight just some of the other areas that, the other audiences that we will be engaging with beyond just the public. It's, of course, very important for us to hear from the public, but we have a whole suite of stakeholders as well. So just to highlight a few of those efforts, we have just, as of a few hours ago, finished the last of our 11 preview parties to reach out to all of our bus operators. We wanted to give them sort of the first look of this network. And so we've been speaking with all of the operators across the region to understand what they like and what they still would want to see changed. So that's been going on for the last couple of weeks already. And over the last few months, as we were undergoing the process of planning the network, we worked with our jurisdictional partners, with folks at other agencies in the region, in order to make sure this was really a communal effort. We have been working to brief our local officials to ensure that they also become champions and advocates of this project, so really targeted briefings there. And we've also been working with CBOs, the groups that are really engaged already with various communities around our region. We have held some, or we plan to hold some workshops with them. We'll also be offering different toolkits that where they are able to distribute all this information to their networks as well. So we have a digital toolkit, and we're happy to give you flyers and door hangers and things of that ilk for those CBOs to be able to distribute the information as well. So it's really been a huge effort already just to get to this point, to share the network, and we want to continue to make sure we are engaging with all of these different audiences over those coming 50 days or however many it actually is. So just a few asks for all of you to make sure that we can turn you into a Better Bus hero. So if you haven't already, please sign up for our e-newsletter. As I mentioned, the Better Bus Dispatch on our website. That's wamata.com/betterbus. And that's the website that's going to relaunch again on Monday with this whole additional suite of tools. Please tell everyone you know about this project and why they should give us their input. We don't want people to be riding a new bus in a year's time and say, like, I never heard about this, I didn't know about this. That's a failure. So we want to make sure we actually really hear from everyone and get their input now, so that we can act on that input and come back with a better version of this network in the fall. Please spread the word through all of your channels, whether that's on social media, print newsletters, with posters. And again, we're happy to give you a collateral kit. And then if you are free, please come to any of our events, whether those are the workshops, whether it's a pop-up. It's going to be pretty hard to plan to go on a ride along, but if you happen to be on a bus while that's happening, that's pretty cool. We would love to hear from you then as well. And then as we've mentioned, we will be coming back to this group again next month, and that's where you'll get more detailed information about the Visionary Network itself. So we'll walk through a little bit more of a technical presentation then. So not here to answer any questions about the actual substance of the routes and the network, but if you have any questions now that you know you're going to want to ask, please feel free to send them our way so we can make sure we have an answer ready for you when we come back next month. So I think with that, happy to answer any questions about the engagement piece of this, or anything at all that's that I mentioned in this presentation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Finn, for that very comprehensive presentation about your kind of engagement strategy and kind of the tactics that you'll utilize to reach to as many people as possible, and especially those affected by some of these major changes. Just to echo what Finn said, please, if you are a member of the RAC, go up and sign up for the newsletter. I am, and I love receiving those updates. And John, much like how we coordinated RAC members attending FY24 budget hearings, we should also try to coordinate RAC members attending these various events. I know I just took a snapshot to try to attend the one in Virginia, so in May. So I don't have any questions in terms of this, but I'll open up to the floor if anyone does. Mahalia.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. I'm Mahalia, I'm a member of the RAC. And one of the biggest ways I interact with the bus system is using it for multimodal transportation. So I often take my bike on the bus, and I know a lot of folks who do that as well. Actually, for the first time, I've had to wait for the next bus to come because the bike racks were full. So I feel like more and more people are doing that. I wasn't able to zoom in on your list of areas of interest, but I was wondering if there was any intention, or have you or could you include trailheads, greenways, bike paths in the areas of interest, so that people who use their bike for multimodal can have that information as well?
Sure. Did you mean like in the route profile where we list some of the points of interest, or? Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't believe that trailheads were prioritized in our listing of, what points of interest are served by this route. And unfortunately, those are about to go to print tomorrow, I believe. So I don't think I have a great answer for you on that right now, but that's a really great point. I also love to bike to the bus and vice versa. So that's a point that's very well taken and something that we should consider, I think, since we will be doing this all again in the fall and coming back with more information to make sure we're thinking about our multimodal users in that way. And I will take that back to the team, see if there are any other ways we can do that in phase 2.
Cool. And I also work in bike advocacy, so if you need like any input on trailheads and maps and all that, I'm happy to provide that.
Great. Yeah, thank you. That would be wonderful.
Is there anyone else? Hearing or seeing none? Finn, Melissa, thank you all again so much, and we're looking forward to engaging with you all very soon about this, certainly at future RAC meetings, but also at a lot of these kind of field events and webinars that will occur. So we're looking forward to that and what will come of that. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time. And John, I will follow up with you about coordinating RAC member attendance at some of these events. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
And while buses are still fresh on our minds, that is a good transition to our 4th agenda point, which is a discussion about courtesy stops. And so we have Jewel Bell, the Director of Office of Bus Transportation. And I will extend the floor.
Oh, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm Jewel Bell. I'm actually the acting vice president of bus transportation. And thank you all for
My
allowing me.
apologies.
No problem. thank you all for allowing me to come and speak to you about a courtesy stop initiative that bus service plans to implement in late May, early June. Next slide, please. So courtesy stops, we're doing this because of safety of customers, the public, the operators. As you all know, that's always at the forefront of everything we do as an agency. Customer service is also important as we look to ensure we are responsive to the customer needs in a safe manner. Bus services will offer operators the ability to extend courtesy stops to all customers during hours of darkness, beginning, as I stated, late May, early June of this year. We're offering these courtesy stops to provide the following benefits: to allow customers to alight at locations closer to their destinations, which will increase safety for the riders and bus operators, and it'll certainly improve our customer service. Next up. I'm sorry, not next up, next slide. Next slide, I'm sorry. One of the things we also wanted to do was come in line with some of the other transit partners that are providing these courtesy stops, which include the Regional Transit in Rochester, New York City Transit and MTA in New York City, New Jersey Transit in New Jersey, Chicago Transit in Chicago, Illinois, and Southeast Philadelphia Transit, which is SEPTA in Philadelphia, in addition to Los Angeles Metro in Los Angeles, California. Next slide. Just to give a brief overview again, we're always looking for ways to improve customer service and give our customers a great experience as they ride our system. So definitely wanted to bring this initiative to you. I'll open it up for discussion at this point to see if anybody has any questions for me.
I will open up to the floor, but I do have one question. So how would this work in terms of communicating that to the bus operator? That you're ready to stop at a certain point on the route?
One of the ways that we're thinking that'll happen is the customer will have to communicate verbally. We're also having an internal conversation as well to decide if we can put a message again once they ring the bell that says stop. And then again, the customer will say stop at the corner or stop in the middle of the block. We definitely want the stops to be in high visibility, well-lit areas that are safe for people to be let off. Of course, no intersections, no highways, things like that. We'll have to definitely think about, as operators need to make left turns because sometimes they need to cross over lanes to do that. So making sure that when we communicate this out to the public, we actually give them some parameters around this initiative.
I'll open up to the floor for anyone that may have questions about this. Mike.
Thank you for the presentation. Just one follow-up question to what Brian had. In the other cities that you and systems that you referenced, which thank you very much, that's really, really good, is how do they do that? How do they notify the driver? Is it the same way that you're talking about when they want to stop?
Yes, they do. They'll just, verbally, I don't want to say holler out, but they'll verbally just say, let me off at the corner. I want to get off, at the next stop. Some of them actually, New York specifically, they offer this all day long, as opposed to just, in hours of darkness. So we do have some of our business partners that are actually doing it all day and some that are focusing on hours of darkness.
Thank you. And have they had any significant, I guess, safety issues or events that have occurred in conjunction with the with this kind of initiative?
Not that we're aware of. One of the things that one of our directors did is certainly reach out to our business partners through APTA and contacted these organizations. And they did not specifically talk about any instances where there were safety concerns. And for us, one of the reasons why we actually are trying to do this is for safety concerns for the customer and the operator.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? I would like to follow up again with what Mike said about what other cities or municipalities are doing in terms of this particular policy. And if this is not something that, if we're at the infancy of this proposal, it just hasn't come to fruition, then I completely understand. But is there a concern about potentially increasing the stoppage time, kind of the headways of these buses as a result of this particular policy? And is that something that other cities have noticed or not?
So one of the concerns that we discussed internal was on-time performance and making sure that we didn't lose traction with on-time performance because we seem to be doing very well there. So we met with our Office of Performance, went over this initiative with them. And one of the things we decided was we'll definitely monitor that, but we didn't think that we would lose traction as it related to on-time performance. So we're confident that it won't impact service.
Awesome. I believe our next hand was Mahalia.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I also echo some concerns about the frequency of stops. I feel like people already aren't great at telling the bus driver when to stop. And I do wonder, and I'm curious to hear more case studies in other cities and when you launch this feedback from drivers on people's spatial awareness and how that plays into how good they are at asking for stops with enough leeway to make sure that drivers are able to drive safely.
One of the things that I think we need to do is certainly as we get closer to the launch date, we're starting those conversations with our operators now, just to try to get some feedback from them. We're working with the media relations team at some point. We're gonna, in the near future, to put something out to the public to get their feedback, and we'll go back to those organizations that I had on the screen and ask those questions again and come back with additional information in that, if that's okay.
Thank you. Jose.
Thank you. And thank you for the presentation. And while I may echo the same concerns, I do see some of the positives because sometimes these bus stops are maybe not in the best location where like maybe there's like a family with strollers that would actually prefer to be like left off just a little bit after the bus stop or before if there's like a sidewalk that ends prematurely. I know that can be this can be used as a positive. I think with the on-time performance and just making sure that the bus drivers are able to complete the route and the time is important. And I do think that people understand the spatial awareness of when people want to take their stops, but also I'm sometimes in the bus and then like, oh, next stop actually when they hit the bus stop button. So I know there's going to be a lot of learning with this initiative, and hopefully there's something that you guys can share with the RAC and see what you guys find out. Thank you.
Definitely, thank you.
Mike.
Sorry, I had this discussion is kind of keeps more and more questions keep coming to my mind, and I know you're still working on things, so I apologize. I guess my questions are more things not necessarily for answer now, but things to consider, which I'm sure probably are things you already have, but just from a RAC perspective. I mean, I'm thinking of things like potential liability issues, where is there going to be a kind of like almost like an SOP or standard operating procedure where drivers know what to look out for when they're doing this, so that someone doesn't get off the bus and like kind of step in, I don't know, like break their legs basically while they're getting off, or some weird area. For the super introverts like me, what happens, with people that may not want to, is there another signal they can do other than just hollering or shouting? Some people might not be comfortable doing that. And just, where does the line get drawn where people start to expect that the bus driver is going to stop for them, and then when they don't, is there some kind of, is it going to be made crystal clear that it's at the discretion of the driver? So don't expect it. It's a courtesy, and kind of highlight the courtesy factor of it, because some people might, think, oh, wait, you courtesy the other guy, how come not me? And it kind of can spiral. So just a lot of concerns that I have on educating people and making it so the drivers can really hone in on what is appropriate, where to go, and what they can and can't do, like the guardrails for that.
So, excuse me, currently we are working on an SOP and a notice to operators. We'll definitely provide training to the operators. Some of the things just that you brought up that were concerning, we thought through. And just to name a few, we actually indicated that this applies to alighting only. The front door is where the alighting will happen once the stop is requested. Certainly in well-lit areas, safe areas, stops within 3 blocks of a left turn, and allowing the operator to make the best professional judgment. Again, if they deem that it's unsafe to let somebody off there, that's where we expect a conversation to be held between the operator and the customer. This is not a safe location. We certainly don't want to let people off there that could possibly be hurt or injuries can occur. So again, it's really about their best judgment, even though it is a courtesy. So that's going to be part of the communication that goes out to the public. We want to make sure they really understand what this courtesy stop is, because we want to keep people safe while providing good customer service.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or general comments about the courtesy stop initiative and proposal or initiative? If not, I do have to say, I think this is another tool that WMATA has kind of deployed to try to be more innovative in how we deliver good bus service, right? It's the Better Bus Initiative. Obviously the increased focus, in the FY24 budget, and hopefully more money to help support the Metro bus system and electrifying it. So I'm really impressed with this. Now, obviously, we just came up with a bunch of potential scenarios because we're a group of pessimists, and that's kind of our tasks. No, we're optimists, and I'm very optimistic about the system. But I think starting this discussion now is very
Brian?
useful and useful. Yeah. Yes, Pat.
Yeah, hi, I'm sorry, I tried to get off. I don't know what the keyboard control is to raise my hand, so I had to jump in like this. Just had a question concerning folks in wheelchairs. Generally, I've seen situations where, making sure that the ramp is down flush and in a safe place would be a good thing. If they can just, ask someone to pull over here, how are we going to make sure that that ramp that they're going to roll down on is going to be secure? We just ran across a situation at our last meeting where we had a wheelchair user where the ramp wasn't secure on the sidewalk, and they ended up flipping over and going to the hospital and being very badly injured. There is a safety concern regarding that. So we'd want to, how do you know? And then of course, if they're being let off at a certain point and they're not connecting to the sidewalk, that ramp is going to be much steeper than it might be otherwise.
So one, definitely sorry to hear about that person who hurt themselves and had to be transported to the hospital. Again, I think that's part of the operator's responsibility. When they get to a location where someone is requesting to stop, particularly someone in a wheelchair, if they're not able to safely deploy the ramp where the person can get off without being injured, they should not do that. And again, that's definitely part of the training and part of what we'll make sure that is communicated, because again, we want to be able to offer people courtesy stops, but we need to keep people safe while they're doing it. So,
right. So is it I guess in this situation, the person in the wheelchair says, let me off here. The bus driver really has to understand that the ramp that they're lowering down may not be secure for the wheelchair. And so whose responsibility is it? Does the patron who said, I won't be let off here, override the good judgment of the bus driver? That seemed to be putting more of responsibility on the bus driver that they wouldn't ordinarily have if they were stopping at a regular location.
Well, I would say it's the operator's responsibility to make sure that the customer is let off safe, and that's where the conversation has to be held. You did request to get off here. It's not a safe location. Please allow me to take you to the safest location and let you off without being injured. So that's part of that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Good.
Yeah, that's part of that customer service that has to happen. And again, even so much as showing them when I deploy the ramp, please don't move. But when I deploy the ramp, it is not safe. So I do not want to let you in here for you to injure yourself. So those are the expectations of the operator. And that could be even at an obstructed bus stop. So what I heard you say is if the person demands it or requests it, but even if something was going on at a bus stop and they could not deploy safely, they would be expected to move to the safest location to deploy the ramp to let the person off. And again, letting the person know, I'm not letting you off here because it's just not safe.
Right. Okay. And it might be, I don't remember if you said when this was going to be maybe implemented or whatever. I missed that.
Late May, early June.
Of this year?
Yes, sir.
So it might be, yeah, it might be useful to talk to Anu Sharma with AAC, with our bus rail subcommittee. I don't know that we have discussed this over at the AAC, and I just wanted to avoid, that any type of problem with this in the future between who would have jurisdiction over where they should stop for safety concerns. Because I have seen where the ramp can be, if it's not, on the sidewalk, can be at a very steep angle. And we've had some people flip over and fall off and be pretty badly injured.
Okay. I'll definitely.
Yeah. You know who to reach from AAC?
I do. I'll reach out to Christian and
Okay.
and actually set something up with the AAC. Thank you for that.
Good. And yeah, if it's not with the AAC's whole committee, though I think that would be good, I think it would be also good to at least talk to the bus rail subcommittee. We just had an incident reported on Monday where someone flipped over on, I think it was a bus that was not properly staged, and they ended up pretty badly beat up. So I just would want to see that avoided in the future. So thank you for coming, and Brian, thank you for recognizing me on this. I just want to try to avoid these situations if we can.
Yeah, and Phil. Yeah, Phil.
Yeah, to add on to Patrick's comment, we have had problems in the past when they have changed bus stops for blind and low vision people. And so they will be getting off and not know where they are. And particularly in front of the Martin Luther King Jr. Library, that was a problem we had for several years. Also, it is the north. And during the winter, there might be ice, snow, when the leaves come down and whatever. And so for wheelchair elderly people and low vision people, it's very important because quite frequently what happens is you will find the bus in front parked in the bus stop, or a police car in the bus stop, or an Uber in the bus stop. And so everybody is anxious to get off, and they may say, let's get off. But for people that have mobility and vision difficulties, the driver has to be very aware of where they're letting them down. But thank you. I'm sure they will be. The New York bus drivers all figured it out after the third lawsuit.
Thank you for that. And I just want to make sure that I reiterate that the regular bus stops are not going away. The courtesy stops are just in between bus stops and areas outside of the established bus stops. So if customers still want to get off at their designated bus stop, that will still be an option. That won't go away.
Awesome. If there are no other additional comments or questions, Jewel, thank you so much for coming to speak to us. We're really looking forward to this planning coming to fruition and continuing the conversations about some of these issues. But thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to come to talk to us.
For having me, and everybody have a good evening.
Thanks. And now we have to depart from our conversation around buses and now transition to Metro Rail, particularly a conversation about the much anticipated Yellow Line restoration plan. And so I will pass it over to Heather.
Thanks. My name is Heather Ferguson. I'm the Director of Rail Planning and Scheduling for WMATA. We are very excited for the Yellow Line coming back as well. I'm joined by Alex Block from our Strategy and Policy Group, who has helped put together a lot of the analysis behind our proposed FY24 service plan. So we'd be glad just to get into it. Do you have the presentation, John, or do I need to pull it up? Sorry, thank you.
Sorry, I'm muted. I have it. I can pull it up.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Just 30 seconds here. I didn't.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. So we'll be talking about both the return of the Yellow Line for May 7th, as well as the FY24 budget changes that kind of tied together and some of the data behind it. But the themes are really connected with what we heard in the Better Bus Network in terms of our overall goal of the FY24 budget is to really maximize our network and to make the most of our network and try to benefit the most riders within our resources. So they very much tie together. So we're going to be talking about the restoration of the Yellow Line on May 7th, Sunday, May 7th. Our proposed budget service improvements, and just some overall background into our infrastructure and how that helped kind of help us with the FY24 decisions in terms of where we invest our resources. So first, for the Yellow Line return to service, after many, many months, May 7th, we will see the Yellow Line get restored, and it will be operating from Huntington to Mount Vernon Square. The service level will be every 8 minutes on weekdays from opening till 9:30 p.m. After 9:30 p.m., it'll operate every 12 minutes and also on weekends as well. Right now, we have some supplemental Blue Line service that's been in place to provide additional service for people who are impacted by the Yellow Line. It's operating between Huntington and New Carrollton. That service will be discontinued on May 7th, and those resources in terms of operators and fleet will be used to restore the Yellow Line service. The Green Line has been operating more frequently to offset the loss of the Yellow Line, and so that will continue operating every 8 minutes as well. We'll have approximately a train every 4 minutes from L'Enfant to Mount Vernon Square once that service is restored. And those who are riding over the bridge will see up to about a 14-minute time savings, depending on where they're traveling. If I'm traveling to L'Enfant Plaza, I'll see about a 14-minute time improvement. And just in terms of overall Green and Yellow Line patterns, we wanted to kind of talk about this before we get into the FY24 budget, in that most of the trips that are being taken on both the Yellow and Green are going into what we call our core system, which is the center 4 stations of Mount Vernon Square to L'Enfant. And about 12% are going from end to end, and only about 5% are going to be traveling through the area that will be impacted by the Mount Vernon short turns. So we wanted to just provide some of the data and the context behind our FY24 proposal. Alex, I don't know if you want to jump in on any of the additional detail here. Okay. We also just wanted to mention that we have a lot of customers who are currently transferring in the core. We have a lot of people transferring in 3 stations, Gallery Place, L'Enfant, and Metro, and about 30% of our customers transfer as well. And so that's also part of the context is that we're going to make those connections within the core hopefully faster for people who are making those connections with our service changes, improved green and yellow line service, and as well as orange line service. And then we're going to go into our FY24 budget that's been discussed a lot of feedback on it. But the whole goal of it was really to try to strengthen the overall network and provide more frequent and efficient transfers in the system. The concept is that we have a lot of people coming through the core, and that the trains would be arriving on average every 3 to 6 minutes during all time periods. One of the big parts of the FY24 budget that has been kind of not as emphasized as much is that we were going to have more frequent service during the off-peak and late night. System-wide, we're also going to see the ends of the lines getting about 8 to 12 minutes. So we're really trying to ensure that we have more of a walk-up service than ever before. We also want to enable people to transfer a ride within the whole network faster and make their connections quicker. We think this is going to help increase our ridership by 3.4 million for an overall net cost of 19 million. And then getting into the green and yellow line optimization, the proposal is to operate the green line end to end every 6 minutes, and then the yellow line from Huntington to Mount Vernon Square every 6 minutes. This provides about 34% more service for the green and yellow line riders. 3 out of 4 green line and yellow line customers will see reduced wait times of 3 to 50%. And the other part that we really want to emphasize is the green line south of L'Enfant Plaza to Branch is an equity market, an underserved area, and we really feel like it's one of the important principles is making sure that service was equal to that on the north, and so we're really pleased that we can try to improve that service to that area. We also think it's a really there's a lot of potential ridership growth in that area, so it's definitely has a lot of equity impacts as well. And then moving to the orange line, this is also to some degree an equity market, at least on the eastern end. The proposal is to run the peak service on an average of 7.5 minutes and then 10 minutes during the off-peak. Right now we're running this extra service out to New Carrollton was part of a yellow line shutdown. And it's kind of provided some benefits to people, and this FY24 budget kind of helps us keep that additional service out there. It really has a lot of connections with Amtrak, Mark. There's a lot of things that are, if you've been able to travel out there, there's a lot of development going on around the New Carrollton station. So we want to continue to provide more frequent service to them. It also helps boost service for people traveling in the interlined areas from Roslyn to Stadium Armory. So it's an overall 23% increase of service as well. So this is just an example of someone who right now is traveling from Anacostia and trying to get access to jobs. They're going to see that their time waiting for the green line train is going to be shorter, and they're going to be able to transfer quicker to yellow and green lines. So their increase to jobs is going to increase by 25%. So they'll be able to get to potential employment within 30 minutes, 25% increase in those jobs. Anything else? The other thing we just wanted to mention is that our infrastructure has some opportunities and limitations. And one of the questions we've gotten is, why don't we run both services to Greenbelt, green and yellow? The Greenbelt terminal will not allow us to run both services every 3 minutes, but we do have this turn back at Mount Vernon Square that allows us to run more frequent service on yellow and green with that turn back. We also have had some limitations in terms of our fleet, like so we're really trying to maximize where we are providing our service to benefit the most people. So that also helps preserve our fleet as we get more trains back. And I believe that's the end of our presentation. Be glad to answer any questions. input, feedback. Glad to hear. Mr. Posner?
Bill? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Two questions. The Blue Line extension was a wonderful thing for the people at the National Science Foundation, all 15,000 of them, because those that live in Virginia changed to the Blue Line at Ross Lynn, but to get to Eisenhower Avenue, they would then have to change trains again, either at Pentagon City or go into Alexandria and walk a quarter mile, which wasn't very bad, except for the fact there's tremendous amount of construction going on there. So if there is any way for the Virginia folks to not have to go to L'Enfant Plaza to get the yellow green line to come back to Eisenhower Avenue, it would be nice to have that one extra stop on the Blue Line. It was really nice when it happened.
Interesting. Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you. I
Yes,
think we
the other thing on Orange Line and Blue Line, probably the worst station in the entire system is Stadium Armory. The switches are constantly out at Stadium Armory. And so I know changing the route won't change it, but doing something with the physical infrastructure there to get those switches fixed would be super. But other than that, that's wonderful. And
Okay.
it's going to be a big thank you from all of the NSF employees.
Thank you. This is really great feedback.
Mike.
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. It was really helpful and informative. I know a lot of people their wallets will be happy that they don't have to pay for parking downtown anymore. They can actually take the yellow line again. So this is a big deal for a lot of people. So thank you. The one question I had was, I noticed that your presentation barely mentioned the Silver Line, particularly the western part of it. And my question is, for this restoration plan, how does the Silver Line fit into it, if at all? Are people on the Silver Line going to see, outside of the core, are they going to see any, benefits or headway?
Sure. We're going to be, the Silver Line will be improving to 10-minute peak and 12-minute off peak as part of this FY24 budget. We're obviously looking at the ridership really closely and looking at the patterns as we're seeing people start using that. The one thing to note is that the Silver Line is a very long route. And so increasing service does require a lot more resources in terms of trains. So that's something that we also are kind of looking at, but it's a very long route. So the good news is that we are seeing, growth in ridership with the extension. And so, for this proposal, we're going to see a 10-minute peak, 12-minute off peak, but we will continue looking at ridership to see how we can best serve this line. That's a really good question. Alex, I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on that.
No, just to add that the service proposed for May will be every 12 minutes at peak and every 15 minutes off peak. And then we have the increase again with the FY24 budget.
Exactly.
For every 10 minutes at peak and 12 minutes off peak.
You're correct. It'll be
And
phased in.
Yes, we have this slide here. We had this in our appendix that we didn't have in our presentation, but it summarizes the May plan and then what is proposed for the FY24 budget.
That's right.
Jose.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, and I can echo that. Well, at least some of my colleagues would be happy that the yellow line is back in service. I know that separate from that is also the new station, the infill station, Potomac Yard. I know there's no details on that, but I think just having the yellow back is great. I know that the RAC has talked about that switchback at Mount Vernon a lot, and we have heard it even at the budget public hearings the one that I attended. So I think from just all the materials you guys sharing us, like having some improved reliability for people that are on the Branch Avenue side of the Green Line getting into the city and vice versa is a welcome. And then just having a quicker access into the city if you're in like Alexandria or like in Franconia or Kingstown, just trying to get into the city versus trying to like meander through the Blue Line. And it was a great service. It's nice to have the yellow line back. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. And I do have one question, and well, it's actually kind of two questions. So with the summer shutdowns, particularly for a few weeks after July 1st on the Orange Line and for a lot longer through into September on the end of the Green Line, is the budgeted service still going to be the service provided? And then maybe this is a comment or a question, but for those that are going to need alternative trip arrangements from Greenbelt or College Park or Hyattsville Crossing, whatever it may be, are they going to stop going to, is Mount Vernon Square? Is that where they would most likely get dropped off at the terminal of that trip?
So for the Green Line, so we have a lot of things happening all at once. We have Yellow Line getting restored, and we go right into the summer shutdowns. So for most of our customers, they're going to see kind of a consistent service level from what they are doing now through the summer. And those service improvements won't be happening right away. In particular for the Green Line, the shutdown is from Fort Totten to Greenbelt. So the Yellow Line will continue operating to Mount Vernon Square, and the Green Line will operate from Branch to Fort Totten. And they will both operate every 8 minutes. So we'll kind of go from our current level and kind of maintain that on the green and yellow through the summer until after that shutdown. We are still constrained by our 7000 series fleet returning. So that's something that we are also trying to balance as we're improving service, is our availability of fleet. The Orange Line is going to have two different shutdowns, and the first one is going to be pretty impactful. The service will continue a 12-minute peak and 15-minute off peak, and that'll be for 3 weeks. And then we go into a shorter shutdown on the Orange Line, and that's when we are proposing going to a flat 12-minute all-day service. We have a detailed press release that should go up this week to describe more of that, but you're absolutely right. These summer shutdowns are impacting our service levels this summer.
So service is even going to decrease in the part of from like Ballston to Minnesota?
It's not going to decrease, but we are having a shutdown of that core. Right. So we will have the Orange Line will operate from Ballston to New Carrollton every 12 minutes during the peak and 15 off peak, which is basically what is a normal service. And then the Silver Line will be operating every 12 minutes from Ballston to Largo. And so basically our current service levels will continue into that shutdown, but the train won't be operating the full length of the network.
Okay. Are there any other additional comments or questions? Okay. If not, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For coming and talking to us, Heather. We greatly appreciate it.
Sure.
And we're looking forward to certainly the restoration of some of these lines and increased service budgeted after these restorations or renovations are done. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move to our next agenda item, which will be Lynn talking to us about the 8K series rail car design. Thank you so much, Lynn, for coming and talking to us for a second month in a row about this. We greatly appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, thank you for having me, and thanks everybody for staying with the meeting long enough for me to bring up the rear here. It's always hard to follow my very terrific colleagues, and especially Heather, who does such a phenomenal job with all the variables and inputs that she has to have to develop those schedules and try to protect the riders from any service interruptions as much as she does, and her team is spectacular. So listen, last month you all gave us great information, great feedback, great questions about the 8Ks, and Dave Souter, our Deputy Chief Mechanical Officer, is on the phone with me here. We went away, we talked to the AAC, both the large committee and the bus and rail subcommittee. and got a lot of questions, a lot of feedback. What we're really focused on today, we have some new things to show you, but we're really focused on the structural decisions that we need to make very soon. And structural decisions include things like whether or not to be open gangway and the seating configurations. These are things that need to be finalized soon. So just so you know our process, we're back with you today. Next week, we go to New York, a group of us, including AAC and REC members, and we thank the chairman, mayor, for agreeing to come with us, and Pat, some of your members. We'll be going up to New York to the Coney Island Rail Yard, and we'll see the open gangway R211, so we can really get an experience with that, in addition to the illustrations. And then we'll ask the committee to let us know what it thinks about the open gangway. And next month, I'm sorry, still this month, our research director is doing some research work with our customers to make sure we get a lot of survey feedback, not just from frequent riders and advocates, but also from people who only use the system occasionally, or, you know, to go to a Nats game or go to the National Zoo or to the airports and that kind of thing. So we make sure that we're as inclusive as possible in tweaking this rail car design. And then next month, we're going to have a pop-up situation, probably at NOMA, where we have a lot of samples and we begin to talk about the interiors and the finishes and the safety call button features and that kind of thing. And so we really want to get your input all along the way here, but today we're very focused on the structural. So if you can advance my slides, John, that would be great. And we'll show you what we've done since we last spoke. So everybody will recall that we have married pairs that we're contemplating for the gangway. So you'd pass between the A car, which has the operator cab, and the B car without a doorway. That's where the gangway would be. But every 2 cars would then be connected by a door to the next 2-car set. That's what married pair means. So here you see a diagram that's new, that has a new seating configuration. And what's the difference here? Well, as you can see, there's much more bench seating than you're accustomed to on a 7K. What we've basically done is flipped it. On a 7K, roughly 2/3 of the seating is that, it's called transverse. It's the backward, forward-facing seating, and 1/3 is the bench or along-the-wall seating that faces the center. On this design, we flipped it. So it's 2/3 bench, 1/3 transverse, okay, back and forward. What does that mean? Well, it means we get wider aisles. It means we get more capacity for both people and their things. So we get more standing room, we get more luggage space, better wheelchair space, better stroller space, better bicycle accommodation, okay? It also means that as the car fills up, you can see through the gangway in the passageway into the next car, so that if there's more space in that car, people can, you know, find a better spot, a seat, a better standing position, what have you, as they go through it. Total, both cars, we go from, on the cars about, going from 110 seating and standing to 130. That's the capacity difference. Okay, if you can go to the B car, John. I wanted to show you that on the A car and the B car, we've separated wheelchair and then bicycle, luggage, stroller area, and you'll see how that works in the illustrations that are about to show up. That aren't perfect illustrations. I want to just concede that the manufacturer is working very quickly with us, but you have to use your imagination just a little bit. And I'll come back to these and answer questions, but let's go to the next slide. So here you see at the end of the married pair what the doorway would look like. And you see the bench style seating, and you see the information displays, that big giant iPhone looking thing that shows your station that's coming up, and those are positioned throughout the car. And then you see the new wallpaper design that we've come up with, so that you know you're in the nation's capital. It's not just a graphic design element. It gives you a sense of place and the magnitude of being in the capital city of the most important country in the world. So I would love your feedback on all of this, including, like, is that the right skyline, by the way? Because we've picked what we thought were some of the most iconic and notable architecture of the nation's capital. Next slide. There's just a few slides here. Okay, so this gives you a little bit more sense of space from a different position in the car. And if you look through this, you're looking through the gangway, through the passageway, but you'll note a couple things. Another one of those giant iPhones, along with the digital displays that'll be above the windows along the valance going back. The digital sign on the right side that has the red bar across it, that'll actually be a little bit larger than it's pictured there, and it'll have the map and so forth. There will be no more paper ads or maps on these cars. Everything will be digital. You'll notice that you see more bench seating here and the wider aisle placement as we showed you in the diagram. Next slide. Here's a wheelchair marker on the ground for people who use wheelchairs. And this is, again, something that we've gone through in great detail with the AAC. We have more work to do on this. Next slide. And here you see the bike, stroller, luggage placement. Again, separate from the space for wheelchairs. And again, you can see how that's positioned against the bench seating and the larger windows. Next slide. And here's the illustration of the gangway. So this is the passageway that goes between the cars. You can go to get a sense of it. We'll take some pictures and bring them back from New York, but obviously this is our beautiful nation's capital graphic depiction as you pass between the cars, bench seating. And again, there's been a lot of conversation about whether that gangway can be a little bit more open, but those, excuse me, those side pockets are really equipment cabinets that we've beautified. The equipment is the guts and brains of the train in some instances. So that is what it is. There's not a lot of negotiation there. But those wider aisles and enclosed aisles in that passageway are sure, I think, an improvement over what we have today. Next slide, is there one more? Can't recall. No, that's it. So I will also tell the RAC that I've been out in stations with the Meet the Team events in Largo, Minnesota Avenue, Ballston, forgetting all of them. And the customer reaction to these illustrations has been overwhelmingly positive. And like some of you, I've heard a number of people say, oh, this is just like, and then they name another system they've ridden on, and had very favorable things to say about, hey, this makes me feel like we're really stepping up in the world and riding on a system that is really befitting a capital city somewhere in Europe, because this is really the trend that we felt in other places. So with that, I'll turn it over to questions that Dave and I can answer. Have we captured some of the things that you all suggested that we look at? Have we missed something? Is there something glaring here that we should really think harder about? Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you want to call on people.
Yeah, we'll start with Mike.
Brian, this is Pat Sheehan. If I could jump in and ask a quick question. Hey,
Oh, yeah,
Lynn.
if it's quick. Yeah.
Let's see. I believe, although I think I'm correct, on the 7000 series and trains below that, didn't you have an operator call button on the doors or by the doors? Where would that be for emergencies?
Yeah, so the way it's depicted on this illustration, and Dave, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the call button to the operator is right there at the entrance to the gangway, and I'm sure we're repeating that by the door at the end of the B car. I don't know if it's illustrated.
Right.
Oh, and there's one there by the door by the wheelchair access point and in the illustration. Dave, are those all true to scale there?
Yes, those are correct.
Okay.
Okay, good. So you'd be in between, I mean, by the gangway piece, you'd have the operator control button there. Okay.
Right.
Good.
So the wheelchair space, the gangway, and the rear door.
Right. Okay, good. Thank you.
Sure.
Mike?
Okay, thank you so much for this presentation. I think this looks great. Last month I looked at it, I'm like, okay, I have some questions, but now I've really warmed up to the gangway idea and everything like that. I have two questions for you. One of them should be really easy. The first question is, to the extent that the trains are going to be equipped with kind of surveillance cameras to make sure that safety and things like that, will the cameras be oriented to capture what's going on in the gangway itself? Because the picture looked like there might be some kind of angles in there. I just wanted to make sure.
I don't know the answer to that, Dave. If you do, you do. If you don't, we'll find it and get back to you. But Dave, do you know where the cameras are focused?
So there's cameras in all the door pockets as well as at the ends of the car. So we will definitely make sure that the gangway is visible from the cameras.
Okay, thank you. Because obvious concerns, or that could be if nefarious people get wind of that, then that's the blind spot. Then some weird stuff could happen over there.
Sure. No, I appreciate that question.
And the second question is, I noticed in your schematics that you have a lot of USB chargers and spots for that. And I know we've talked about this. So the question is, does that bump up the cost for the cars? And to the extent that it does bump up the cost, is it really necessary? Like, isn't that something that we can cut?
So it's not a bump to the cost. It was included. It is something that we're including in our survey of customers to see whether or not that's a nice to have or something that people really do regard as a standard amenity these days.
Okay, because I'm just thinking of like kind of maybe the unintended consequences has been the news recently, and I know with the safety of public ports, the USB ports and things like that.
I had to laugh because I thought of y'all, Mike, the other day. Did you hear the news report about the USB condom? I know, I can't believe they actually call it this, but there's apparently a device that slides over your USB plug, and you can still plug it into any USB charger and get power, but nobody can take your data. I don't know if it's effective or not, but there was a great news story about it the other day, and I thought, oh, I got to mention this at the Writers Advisory Council because I know they're concerned, but I don't know if that's going to become like a standard thing or not. That could be, how we give away the microfiber wipes. Maybe I'll end up giving away USB covers. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I just foresee the the prophylactic for your USB drives. It's going to get a little out of hand really quickly. But I just wonder if like that would bump up in the long run, kind of IT costs and that kind of thing.
It's certainly worth another conversation. I agree with you.
Thank you.
Phil.
Yes. Hi, Lynn. One
Hi,
question
Dr.
I have
Posner. How are you?
Oh, wonderful. Because of the hybrid nature of the use of the 8,000 cars, is a question of interoperability. In the old days, when we had a train made up of 2,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, the cars didn't talk to each other. So
yeah, we
all the
never
wonderful
want to do
things
that
in the
again.
6,000 didn't work. And the question is, I see this all the time when I go to a different hospital. Nobody uses anybody else's software.
Yeah.
And since the trains are being made by two different companies, I think it's important that they get interoperability for the communications.
I'm going to let
And then the
Dave
only
speak
other-
for that. I'm going to let Dave talk about that. We don't want to have mixed consists in the same mixed. We don't want to have a consist with mixed cars again if we don't have to. That is not optimal for our operation. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, that's
Great.
correct.
Then the other question I have is for those of us that are wall walkers and have mobility issues, would it be possible to put a railing in through the walkway? It would serve two purposes. One, it would stop people from sitting in there and leaning against the wall. But secondly, and Patrick can talk about this, for the low vision community or people who have mobility and stability issues, something to hold on to as they're walking through. And would be a lengthwise railing that went in that connection.
Yeah, we can look at that. I don't know if you can see there's handholds on either side of the gangway. The question about a bar going through, Carol Lopez has counseled us on being careful about creating obstructions in the interest of trying to create things that are helpful to some. So there's a balance there, but we can look at that. We can see what's offered and what's possible through the gangway manufacturers. They're actually subcontractors to Hitachi. So
Yeah, since you do have that slope at the bottom of the walkway that comes out, if the rail didn't go out any further than that, it really wouldn't be interfering with the walking through. But it would
Yeah,
just give some,
Dave,
as I
Dave and
say,
Dave and I will take that back. Yeah.
And you've got some
Thank
low
you.
vision or blind people coming on, I think, the trip on the 18th. So that would be good to get their opinions on how
Yeah.
that would look. Okay,
Yeah.
that's
They'll
great.
actually get to go through a gangway
Mhm. Yeah,
and have that experience and say, okay, what would be helpful here?
good. Thank you. Okay, good call, Phil. Thanks.
Bryna, welcome. Great to see you.
I think she froze.
I don't really ask.
Oh,
Am I
sorry,
frozen?
Bryna. I think you're good. Now you can start.
My apologies for being late. I don't usually ask questions because this is your committee, but just for clarification, Lynn, in the diagrams that you showed, and it seemed that the bike area, the wheelchair areas were not in every car, and the bike areas were not in every car.
Can you go
Is
back
that
to the
correct, or
diagram? So here's a B car, and you can see at the bottom of the screen, bike on the left in the red, and wheelchair on the right in the purple. And the same at the top of the screen, wheelchair in the purple and bike in the red. So that's the B car. Next car, A. Wheelchair in the A car. So
okay?
the A car has the operator cab, takes up some space, takes away some seating, and takes away some of that bike and luggage space.
All right, so, but it doesn't matter what car you get on. There's room for mobility devices.
That's right. There's wheelchair in both, but bike, luggage, and
Okay.
strollers are encouraged to be in B, or just walk through the passageway to the area if they want to be in this special area.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions or comments? And Lynn, I'm going to save some of my questions, I think, for when we potentially get together on Tuesday, just because I know I'm going to be able to see it up front.
Yeah.
Two things. Are the trains actually going to be marked on the exterior that this is an A car or a B car? Do you happen to know that?
No, so it doesn't say A and B because that's not meaningful outside of our small group, but they do have decals
Okay.
that show the wheelchair door access and then the bike, stroller, luggage door where that special area is designated. And so those decals are just at the doors where you'd want people to enter as wayfinding, basically.
Sounds good. And then I think when last month we talked about the importance of making sure that we have that balance of transverse versus bench seating to be appropriate, because we know we have people that have preferences for one, but they need to be balanced against trying to have kind of the safest, highest capacity train that we can. And it's good to hear that it seems like this design helps accomplish that need. In particular, I know I've been on trains lately, and by the way, I was the one in the meeting last month talking about the importance of the transverse seating and how I always prefer that. But now that I think of it, after having ridden the metro, sometimes if you get caught in the middle of two doors and it's packed, just trying to squeeze your way out at a station where like not everyone is getting off, like obviously Metro Center, everyone's getting off there, so it's easy to ride the crowd. But if you're trying to get off at a less popular station, you're having to push some people out of the way. So having that extra floor space to kind of navigate to the doors is going to be critical. And
Yeah,
then
I think that's a very important point, and I would just add to that for our frequent riders, our customers are so smart. They get on the car and play exactly where they want, position themselves where they want, and position themselves again when they need to get off. They know how to manage that crowding. For visitors, it's a much different experience. And by the time they realize they're at the station where they want to come off, if they're in the middle, they're in a mini panic about getting to the door, right? So I appreciate your insight there, Brian, because we do want to be thoughtful about every rider and how, for the people who are infrequent riders, that this design is a little bit more customer friendly.
Yeah. And then, and thank you for considering that in the design. And then my last comment or question, and this has nothing to do really with the customer experience, strictly speaking, is something that you mentioned about having digital ads be a little bit more prominent part of this, because again, while I really don't care too much about the ads in a train at any given moment, I do know that it is another source of operating revenue. And if we can use capital funds to help support our operating revenue, then I'm all about that. And we should lean into that as much as possible. So that was really good to hear, and just making sure that WMATA is receptive to kind of, and Hitachi as well, in terms of the placement of those screens and kind of their functionality, in order to make sure that it's user friendly for the companies or agencies or whomever decides to take out an ad in our system.
Yeah. I like that, and I appreciate the comment. I will also say that many of those screens will have public service announcements, video capacity to show you how to use your, smart trip card or your mobile app, maps, sign ahead, all of the sort of wayfinding and information pieces that customers are looking for while they're on board. So in addition to the advertising, which is important for revenue, for sure.
Anything else? Okay.
Well,
Thank
I
you.
appreciate so much the input and the time, and I look forward to seeing some of you next Tuesday. And we'll come back to the committee either at your next meeting or through emails, and give you some more input and feedback, and let you know when that pop-up is going to be available. And hopefully you'll all come and walk through that and touch and feel the samples and give us even more input. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Lynn. I greatly appreciate it, and looking forward to this project coming to fruition. So, okay, we will move to our next agenda item, which, John, I believe, will that be you referring to the FY24 budget feedback?
Yes. Really, I guess couching it as sorry, let me turn on my camera so you're not hearing a disembodied voice. I know that several of you went to the budget public hearings. The board has considered sort of what it heard from the public as part of the overall hearing process. They have recommended they recommended a few changes from what was proposed in December, and I just wanted to take the opportunity to share that with you, if I can find it here. Here it is. So just to share with you all that since December, what has changed is that the maximum fare on Metrorail, while we would charge the same fare or one sort of rate all day on weekdays from open till 9:30 p.m., based on how far you go, the maximum would remain at $6. There was a proposal to raise the maximum to $6.50. The budget that'll be before the board at the end of this week also reduces the maximum fare on Metro Access to $4 from its current $6.50. It adds in Metrobus service on what is now a Yellow Line shuttle, and it will come back as Route 11Y between along the Potomac River down by Mount Vernon and Potomac Park near the State Department. And finally, improving, and I think Heather may still be on the call and she can correct me if I'm wrong, but once we get to the point with rail cars and operators and other infrastructure, at some point improving late night green and yellow service, that's service after 9:30 p.m. from every 10 minutes to every 7.5 minutes. So it would be all day green and yellow line trains every 6 minutes, and then 3 minutes in that section where they overlap between Mount Vernon Square and LaFont Plaza. And then after 9:30 p.m., it would be 7.5 minutes on each line, which would be a little bit under 4 minutes on that overlap section between Mount Vernon and LaFont. Again, subject to, rail car and operator availability when we get to that point. The reason I wanted to put this in front of you and make you all aware of it is I know that you've provided feedback to the board on other occasions when staff came to talk to you about rail optimization and about consolidating our fare structure into just one thing rather than having separate peak and off peak. And so I just didn't know if anybody, if the council as a whole wanted to take an opportunity to transmit any further comments to the board before it considers its budget on Friday, or if y'all are sort of coolio and you gave your feedback at the beginning of the process and we're good. So I just wanted to sort of create a space for that conversation if anyone wanted to have it.
I think the fact that you just said coolio just makes this meeting worth it. But with that said, I will open up the floor for any questions or comments about this.
And Brian, this is Pat Sheehan, and I would just like to say, John, for the parts that you played in helping to get a flat fare for Metro Access, it was something that the AAC had been advocating for 10 years. We weren't expecting it, and we appreciated the support of particularly the women on the board that brought it forward and the rest of the board that supported it. So for us, having to advocate something that was simplified and a fixed fare for Metro Access, it's a big deal. The RAC doesn't understand it the way the AAC does, perhaps, but thank you very much for reporting that out and the work you have done on that in the past. Sure.
I wish I could take credit. Pat,
John, take credit.
Nope. It's all y'all.
Wow.
And I'll also echo that. Pat, we were there, right? I was there when Sarah proposed it. I'm sorry, Director Klein, and the passion that you and Phil and Denise bring to those public bodies and the RAC is something that I specifically said that I think the RAC should adopt that level of engagement and advocacy, even if it does take a very long time.
Yeah, it did take a long time, but it just a lot of it was built on numbers, on metrics, on testimony and passion, and just staying with it. And so over time, we built up support and built up allies. We didn't realize how much support we had within WMATA, but Brian, was one of the ones that supported it, and we appreciate that. And so just it's a lesson learned for us to keep advocating on what we believe is correct. And I think it's also a lesson for the RAC for proposals that don't go your way, perhaps in year 1 or year 2. If we keep at it, we will get there over time, and keeping the good relationships with the WMATA staff, John, and everybody else working through them, you get a lot further than you might think sometimes, and that's really good. So thanks to everybody, and we appreciate all the support. Thank you, John.
Awesome. Are there any other questions or comments? And I will say, I encourage you to go back and watch the, March 24th meeting? 23rd. Finance and Capital's discussion about the operation and capital changes for the budget. And I think one of the things that shocked me most was the survey data pertaining to the Green Line turnback. And it was actually a majority in favor of it. And I think because a lot of what was talked about earlier in this meeting about increased service along those lines, I think are critical components to why the board ultimately decided to move that forward for their approval in a couple of days. But Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, we will move to our next agenda item, agenda number 8, and that is the annual report committee update. And I will pass it over to Mike.
Thank you, Brian. I will try to keep this brief for as much as because I know it's almost 7:45. So here's where we're at right now is I blasted all of your emails many times over the last month or so. And we have a report. Looks like the final draft. I've incorporated edits and changes. I know I want to thank everybody on the annual report committee who has contributed to it and contributed on edits and feedback. I know Cole's not here today. He gave me some really good, feedback that I incorporated in there. Mahalia did a great job with some of the input she provided and just her counsel and guidance. And Jose, but everyone just did some great stuff on there. So bottom line is we have a report. You should all have the final copy. I sent you a PDF and I have a Word version on my screen in case of any last minute edits. So what I'd like to do is ask Brian as the chair for now, I guess, because your last day, right? Is if we call a vote to see if the RAC wants to incorporate, or we want to have a discussion first, but to vote to incorporate the, or to adopt the annual report as is. And if if we approve it, then, we can ask John to help us out with disseminating it and putting it on the website.
Does anyone?
Any discussion, I guess, first?
Yeah, does anyone have any discussion about the PDF that was distributed by Mike about the annual report?
We're looking good, I think.
Okay.
Should I move its adoption?
I do want to just say, I just want to make a comment before you guys move to adoption, and that's that I just want to congratulate Mike and thank you for your leadership, and everyone that contributed to the report. Significant lift, and thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for your leadership and guidance as well, and John as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And is there a motion to adopt this annual report?
I would move that. This is Pat.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay,
Second.
there's a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed?
Who seconded it? I'm sorry.
Mike.
Thank you. My audio is not great tonight.
Okay.
It is adopted.
All right, thank you very much, everybody. And John, I've already beat that to death. Is there anything you need from us to?
I don't think so. I will. I have been a little out of pocket the past couple weeks, so let me sort of cogitate on that. But I think we can provide it to the board as part of your monthly update. That'll happen in 2 weeks. And if there, if there's any kind of packaging or cover anything that we need, then or that they need or would benefit from, I'll let you know.
Thank you. And also, if at some point when your bandwidth is a little bit cleared up, if we can put it on, because I know our website, the RAC webpage is very antiquated. It has some meetings and reports, and some it's like a couple of years old. I'm thinking maybe for the fresh start, we could put that one up there since it's
I have already written down post annual report. If you can see my,
I believe you.
my notepad. So,
great. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. All your hard work on this.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We will now move to our next agenda item, which is RAC elections. As you all know, I announced it at our last RAC meeting, and I also told the board about it in their last board of directors meeting that I have decided after almost 2 years as serving as RAC chair that it's, I think, an opportunity for me to pass it on to someone else, not only just for the growth and development of this particular council, but to hopefully get you all more involved. I will continue to serve on the council through, I believe my term was extended to December of 24. So you can't get rid of me yet. With that said, just some points of clarification for elections. So it is comprised, the exec board is comprised of a chair and 2 vice chairs. And all of those 3 individuals need to come from different jurisdictions. So 1 from Maryland, 1 from DC, 1 from Virginia. And we have to elect all 3 tonight. Now, this is not to say that you have to be the representative from Virginia, Maryland. You can be at large, but you do need to physically reside in those jurisdictions if you are going to serve on the exec board in that capacity. We will start with the chair, because that will influence theoretically who can serve as the 2 vice chairs. So, John, I believe it's proper to open up nominations first for chair.
Yes. So yeah, opening the floor. I'll let you open the floor for nominations for chair.
I will open up the floor for nominations, and I will make a nomination myself for Mike Leibowitz for chair. Mike, do you accept?
Yeah, I'll accept it. Pending anybody else wanting to do it, I'll accept the nomination.
Okay, Mike accepts the nominations. Are there any other additional nominations for chair? John?
No, I'm not making a nomination.
John, are you nominating yourself?
No. Staff side, but just need if Mike accepts, then I'd need to get that nomination seconded.
Good point. Is there a second?
Jose, second.
Okay.
Jose seconds it. Are there any additional nominations? So I'm going to close the nomination and move to a John, I believe for this particular issue, a voice vote is warranted, where you'll have to name us.
Yeah, I don't think we need. I mean, I don't think we need to vote by division. Like, I don't think I need to go through each one of you. I think we can do it by. I think the term is by acclamation.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
just all
If
in
it's the only
favor, say aye.
nomination. Okay. All in favor of Mike Leibowitz to be chair of the RAC, please say aye.
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 Okay. And any opposed? Hearing none. Mike, congratulations. The RAC has elected you chair.
Well, thank you very much, everybody.
Congratulations and thank you so much. So with that said, the chair is from Virginia. So now we need 2 vice chairs, 1 from Maryland and 1 from DC. So I will open up the floor for nominations for a vice chair from Maryland, and I will nominate Mahalia.
I second.
Do you second the nomination?
Yes.
You don't have a choice, do you? There's only one girl.
Mahalia, do you accept?
I accept.
And Mike seconded it. Are there any additional nominations for a vice chair from Maryland? Hearing none, I'm going to close the floor for nominations. And all in favor of Mahalia being our vice chair from Maryland, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say no. Okay. Hearing none, congratulations. We've just elected our vice chair from Maryland. Now we have to elect a vice chair from the District of Columbia, someone that resides in there. We know that Cole currently serves in that capacity, and he has expressed interest in serving that capacity. John, is it okay, given his pre-meeting confirmation about accepting a nomination, that we can
I
do
think
that?
it's okay. Yeah, he said it. We have it in writing.
Perfect.
He's good. So
we'll accept his nomination in absence. Is there a second?
Second.
Jose second.
Seconded by Pat and Jose. Are there any other nominations? I don't think that there really are. Okay, so I will close the floor for nominations. All in favor of Cole to be our vice chair from the District of Columbia, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, Cole has been elected the vice chair from the District of Columbia. And that wraps up our election, as we now have a complete exec board. So congratulations to all of those.
Congratulations, everybody.
Along those similar lines, along those similar lines, John, Bryna, we will, Jose, we will want to connect with those that have just been recently elected for an orderly transition, probably sometime soon, certainly before our next meeting. And per our bylaws, they assume their respective roles immediately after this meeting, I believe. So.
And Brian, I'd like to say something if I could. This is Pat.
Yes, Pat.
I have really respected your leadership with the RAC. I think you have elevated the RAC substantially. In the board meetings, you have been very articulate, very passionate, very organized, and you really have done a credit to the RAC in articulating where they are, where they're going to, and it's very evident that the board has grown to respect the RAC because of the way that you conducted yourself in front of the board, what you had to say and how you had to say it. So I'm sorry that you're not staying on as RAC chair, but I really thank you for your leadership. It's been tremendous. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Pat. That really means a lot coming from you.
Brian, I just also want to say, echo what Pat said, that I personally have big shoes to fill. Or you have, whatever the shoe thing is, you wear them. I've watched on the live stream at a lot of the board meetings when you speak, and I'm always impressed by how good you are at speaking and conveying the message and diplomatic you are. And I can only hope that I can even, do at least 50% of how good you do on that one. So I've learned a lot from you. So I appreciate everything, and I look forward to continuing to learn from you.
Thank you, and I'm looking forward to helping ensure that's this orderly transition into this role. So, and I'm looking forward to working with you as chair, because I'll still be around. So, okay, that concludes the elections, and we will move on to general announcements and new business. Are there any comments? Yes, Mahalia.
Just wondering when the new RAC members will be joining us.
So I have been soon, hopefully. I know Brian is also interested. I saw her ears perk up. I've been out of town for probably the past 4 or 5 weeks. I am now back, and so I'm hoping to have some candidates within the next week or two to consider. If we can get the board to appoint them in 2 weeks, that might be lightning speed, but I'm going to shoot for it. Once the board adopts their budget Friday, or adopts the budget Friday, then a lot of space opens up to do some recruiting activities. And I know we have some candidates to review.
John, that was my question. Would it be helpful? Do we have candidates in the pool? Would it be helpful for everyone here to identify 1 or 2 people to put their names in the hat? Do we need to expand the pool?
Let me look. I know. Hold on. Let me find. I want to say we had like a dozen or maybe more for 2023. How many items? Okay, so I see 20 sort of applications on file. Out of that, we need to get 4 people, right, to replace Marcella, Andrew, Charmaine, and
Daryl.
Thank you. So that seems like a decent ratio to me.
What's the breakdown of jurisdictions?
I would have to, I can't give that off the top of my head, but let me commit to doing a review of those by, if not Friday, by Monday. And then if we need to call for more nominations, we can, but I like those numbers, right? That it's a 5-to-1 ratio of applications we have on file and people we need. So 20-to-4. I have a medium high level of confidence that I think we have that's a good enough pool.
Yeah, and I believe, like, obviously at large can come from anywhere. That's the reason why they're called. But in terms of filling the seats from representatives of those respective jurisdictions, I think Virginia, we have our 2. So I think it's Maryland and DC that both need 1.
DC is filled by both Cole and Emma.
Oh, okay.
So we need 1 Marylander and then
the at-large.
3 at-larges.
And John, these candidates have already been interviewed and.
No, they have not. They've submitted their applications, but we have not gotten to the
interview
review and interview step.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Thank you for that update, John. Mike, it sounds like you have an important first task to help facilitate that.
Happy to work on that one, definitely. So anything, John, that you need from us, or me specifically, to get started reviewing applications, vetting them, scheduling interviews, happy to kind of get that going.
Okay, great. No, I appreciate that. I think we have a lot of, like, I think from my side, I think I have a lot more bandwidth either now or in the next couple of days to really dive into that.
Sure. Thank you.
Are there any other new announcements or items for new business? Any comments or questions for the good of the order?
I will just say that Brian and I will take a lot of pictures and videos for next week's tour to share with you. I understand that people have day jobs and making a trip to New York City on a random Tuesday is difficult. So I'm glad Brian's able to make it. I think there'll be good representation from a lot of members of the AAC as well, who will bring their perspectives to it as well. So we'll look forward to sharing what we can. It's exciting stuff.
Yeah.
These are once in a generation purchases, or once in a 2-generation purchase, actually, because these are supposed to last 40 years. So
I apologize. I got kicked out. So I didn't hear whether anyone was able to go.
I think it's just Brian.
Oh, well, good. I'm glad Brian's going. I think he can carry the flag. He'll have good insights. And then Pat, who from AAC's going?
I think we've got 3 or 4 people from AAC. We had, I think, a total of. I'm not able to go. My leadership at VA decided that I was needed elsewhere.
Well, I guess the question is, do we have at least one share user going?
Yes.
Yes,
we do. We do have I think 1 or 2 wheelchair people going. A couple of I think 1 blind and 1 low vision.
Perfect.
Yeah, 2. I see 2 wheelchair users, 1 blind, 1 low vision, 1 individual who uses a walker,
Mhm.
and then a couple individuals who are senior citizens.
We actually had 7 people from the AAC that said they wanted to go, and so I don't know how the invites, were disseminated, but yeah, I think they are interested.
Yeah,
Brian,
so it's
thank you for
it's
going.
going to be 8 individuals from Brian from the RAC and 7 from the AAC, and then about an equal number of WMATA staff, myself included, and Lynn and her team and our chief safety officer and some folks. So it looks like a good crew.
A good crew. Yeah, absolutely.
Looking forward to seeing what conceptually what potentially could come our way in a couple of years. So
we'll do it better than New York. We always do.
Oh yeah, of course. That's a given. That's a given, and we'll let them know that too.
Let's just not do it while we're in their shop.
That's fair. Okay. Any other items for new business? Hearing none. Before we move to adjourn, I just want to thank you all for this meeting. It was incredibly comprehensive. And I think that it was both informative, but I think we gave good feedback to staff and feedback in addition to the annual report in terms of what we can provide the board in terms of our expectations for the bus and rail and some other items. So we're looking forward to that. And with that said, I move to adjourn this meeting of the RAC. Is there a second?
Jose second.
Jose seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Please say nay. Hearing none, this meeting of the Riders Advisory Council on April 12th is now adjourned at 8:06 p.m. Thank you all so much, and have a great night, and talk to you all soon.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Brian, for your
Thanks,
leadership.
Brian. Thank you all.
Good night.